Hey there guys, how's it going? So if you haven't heard the news already, there's a brand new Kingdom Hearts mobile game in development, currently with a working title of Project Xehanort, but the final title will have 2 words comprised of 8 letters. You can actually go ahead and guess the name on Twitter right now, potentially winning a prize if you get it either correct or if you get a good enough guess that I guess makes the development team laugh. Anyway, what does that mean for Kingdom Hearts Union Cross? Well, I believe it means it's shutting down probably by the end of the year. I don't see it lasting into 2021. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about why. So we'll go over the history of Union Cross a little bit, its iterations, its previous games, and what led to this point. I believe it's sort of not a commercial failure, but it's not doing gangbusters the way that the developers probably hoped that it would, and the potential that it has, which is why I think they're relaunching with a brand new game. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about it, starting with the history of the game. Kingdom Hearts Key, the initial browser only, so the internet browser version that you accessed from a computer version, was only playable it was playable only in Japanese and released in July of 2013. So this entire, as a series, has been around for quite a while now. It goes on for a couple of years. It's getting regular content updates for the story, the way that that currently play the game get regular content updates for the story. And then all of a sudden the announcement comes that the game is closing down. The final scenario will be revealed, which is the Keyblade War itself. Do whatever you want to do, use your metal cards, do everything you want to do. By then, because the game is shutting down and will be relaunched as Kingdom Hearts Unchained Key for mobile devices. So the Keyblade War happens, our character basically goes through their entire journey, getting their Keyblade, meeting their Chirithy, saving the Disney worlds, which we don't quite know what we're doing yet, meeting Ephema, meeting Skuld, meeting the Foretellers, and then eventually fighting them. All our friends die, the Keyblade War happens, basically everyone dies. We fall unconscious as basically we're saved by Ephema and Skuld and taken to... we don't know, the game ends. We get a little cutscene of Maleficent, who has effectively time traveled from the... well, we can figure out that she's time traveled from the future into what seems to be the past, and that's about all we know. End game. Now, Kingdom Hearts Unchained Key is released, so it's revealed for, obviously, iOS and iPhone in September of 2015. It's actually released, and people get to play it. It's effectively a relaunch of the first game in terms of content. So the story happens... what we don't know at the time is that effectively our character has their mind completely erased, conveniently, of their previous journey, and we're set into basically an alternate reality where it's exactly the same reality that we just played through, except this time the war doesn't happen. So our character goes through all the same trials and tribulations they did before, exactly the same, except this time we don't use cards, we use medals, because I guess medals are more appealing and easy to use on a tiny little phone screen, and it helps differentiate that it's a different game now. But in terms of the asset and content creation, I mean, literally it's all already done for us. The animations are lifted basically straight from Kingdom Hearts Key. The story, the sprites, everything, the music is obviously from previous games. The metal renders are literally just renders from the official games that the mobile development team themselves didn't make. You just slap them into a metal artwork frame, put a little bit of sparkly effects on it if you want to, bing bang boom, off you go. So that's released in Japan in September 2015, and then in North America in April of 2016, and then finally in the rest of the world in June of 2016, which is when your boy got a chance to play it. So now the entire world has this game, and again, like I said, so the global is a little while behind on the story, because obviously Japan came out a few months ahead. We catch up a little bit, but we're always perpetually between like 4 and 6 months behind in terms of the story. They caught us up a fair bit, but then they just stopped. I was watching a lot of people about that time being like, okay, this is cool, we've got a Kingdom Hearts mobile game experience, but it's very predatory in a way, and people noticing the difference between the Japanese version and the global version would often get quite annoyed because it seemed like the global version was getting treated a lot worse. The game is all about earning... I mean, it's a gacha game, so it's free to play, but you have to pay to basically progress in power faster than just by earning the premium currency by natural play and by daily login. So it's quickly turned into, if you want to get ahead, you need to spend a lot of money, and it's quite predatory. A lot of the systems were based on ranking, so we would have a regular high score challenge in which you would earn extra medals, or you'd earn, additional rewards that would help you power up your character quite a lot and let you beat the more advanced content. But it was often set up so that you get an advantage in the high score challenge if you had the brand new medal, which may cost a lot of money, because at the time you could go into the game and do a 3,000 jewel pull on a banner, and you weren't guaranteed to get anything. Nowadays, if you do 10, let's say 10 or 15 of those 3,000 jewel pulls in a row, it's called a mercy pull, and you're guaranteed to get something, if not on the 10th, if not before the 10th, then definitely on the 10th for most of the medals. Sometimes it's 15. But there'll be a lot of people, like let's say Gamers Joint for example, quite a large Kingdom Hearts YouTuber that would go ahead and make videos on Unchained and talk about how it's just nickel and diming him, spends 150 Australian dollars, which is likely probably 5 pools at the time, go ahead and just not get anything for it. I was inspired to make my channel because I'd watch guys like DigiJ2 and other people like that spent money on the game and walked away with nothing. And even if they did get something, back in the day you had 1 copy of a medal. If you wanted to get the full amount of power out of it, you needed 2 copies of it. You would do 1 pool, which would get you 10 medals, which would have no guarantee of getting you anything. And in Australian currency, at the best possible price, that would cost you between $20 and $30 a pop for 1 virtual pack of medals. I could buy a real pack of like Pokemon cards for, you know, $5, and that's a real thing that I can then hold on to potentially increase or potentially lower its value. But the point is, I can then sell that off if I want to later. With a medal in the game, you have no guarantee of any value increasing whatsoever, and oftentimes with the power creep in this game, which was a hugely complained about thing, the medal would be so devalued in a few months anyway that you're literally just throwing your money away for nothing, for honestly nothing. That's been a huge ongoing problem in this game for such a long time, as power creep, but I'll get to that later. So the game comes out and people start to have a positive to mixed to negative reception of it as time goes on. Again, there's lots of people talking about, I mean, I myself started making content at this point because I was like, I don't think people realize you can play this game for free. You can just not spend money immediately as soon as you get enough jewels to do a pull. You can just hang on to it for a bit and save up, and then I started basically where I am today. I made a free-to-play channel, haven't spent a cent on the game, and 4 years later I'm a relatively high-ranked player. You know, I'm top 1,000 out of the 50,000 people that play it regularly in a lot of the content, but I think that's part of the problem nowadays. I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but that's part of the problem nowadays, is that to come in brand new to the game when it's been updated so many times over the years, all these brand new systems and functions and inbuilt knowledge that honestly confused the hell out of me when I first started. It's now like 5 times worse than that because of all the new features that have come since then, and it just scares a lot of people away because they realize I'm not powerful enough, I don't know how to get powerful, the game doesn't explain it to me well enough, and I just get scared away. We're skipping ahead a little bit. The game itself is out for a year in North America before it's rebranded as Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. I think the rebrand happens because of what we're talking about here. Kingdom Hearts Unchained Key is too expensive, you know, regret. The public consensus was the game is not fun, the game is not good, it's nickel and diming you the entire time. So what's the solution then? Well, we'll rename it, re-announce it as Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. More or less the same name, it's exactly the same game, you just update it. But I think the idea was that it's not a trick per se, but it's a public rebranding with the idea of, oh, Unchained Key was the bad one. Union Cross, however, Union Cross is the good one. So a lot of people did join in that. I think we did see a sizable increase in player numbers as a result of Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. So Union Cross, as its own entity, has been out for nearly 3 years now. And in that time, it's had its ups and downs. But recently, I'd say it's been getting honestly quite good. There's occasional player surveys in which they ask you, you know, what do you sort of want in the game? And I really believe they have listened to us. I know the North American team especially does work really hard on trying to communicate the feedback to the actual people that develop it, the Japanese team, and there are some things they just can't do. Like, I mean, I forever bitch and moan about catching us up in the story. We're perpetually always 4 to 5 months behind, but I know a lot of the features get communicated, and we get major content updates usually within a day or two, up to a week behind the Japanese release. In that time, the features for new players have been expanded tremendously. There are, at this point, over 900 story quests in the game, which is a huge daunting task for a new player to jump in and try and attempt, especially considering that you have to do them if you want to 100% complete the game, you have to do them twice, once in regular mode, once in proud mode. The modern day events are very, very, very difficult if you want to do the absolute most difficult parts of them, but there are now, like, a lot of the events will have 15 different stages, not just like 1, 2 or 3, so if you are a new player and you can only do 5 or 6 or 7 of the new stages, well, that's okay. At least you feel like you've accomplished something and got some good rewards out of it, rather than you either do the quest or you don't do the quest. There's no in between, and you get the reward or you don't get it. Now there's a pretty wide variety of how many rewards you can get. There is a new player banner in the shop where for a relatively small amount of jewels you're able to obtain one of the most powerful buffing medals in the game, which will get you quite a lot of progress and like you progress significantly further than in the past, where you had no guarantee of getting anything and a buffer was locked behind 15 or 10 or 15 pulls, which it's a really, really, really welcome feature. And again, it's just perhaps a little bit too little too late. We're not experiencing as much filler content as we used to in terms of the overall story. I mean, our characters get to run around and get a new story update once a month, and a lot of the time it used to be that our stupid little character would just interact with Disney characters, which the game openly admits to us are just illusions. So, like, why do we care? Why do we care about an illusionary character? We just don't. Our character helping out a bunch of illusions. It doesn't make any sense why we'd wait a whole month to see that, and oftentimes 4 or 5 months in a row without getting back to the main story. The main story's been updated fairly regularly. We got to go to a new world, the Wreck-It Ralph world, which is pretty awesome, and then in the background of that we had the main story campaign happening, learning a lot more about our union leaders and the foretellers and the sort of plan with the assassination and darkness and all that good stuff. There's been an update in the Japanese version basically telling us the roadmap for the next few months. It's saying that, well, obviously we know we're getting the January story update for the Japanese version that's coming soon. Then there'll be the break in February. Then March and April we'll get another main story update. Then, I say it's a break. It's probably going to be just like a less overall important narrative, but we'll probably still get an update during that month where we run around the Wreck-It Ralph world or another Disney world or whatever. But yeah, so March, April, 2-month break, July, August. 4 more story updates after this month's one, and I think that's gonna be it if I had to guess. Obviously, Project Xehanort is coming out in spring, so anywhere between March to May, Project Xehanort itself will be out, and I'm sure that's what the 2-month break is in the middle there when Project Xehanort will be getting the story updates. So there's still going to be plenty of stuff for us to do. I'm sure they're going to be trying to transition as many people from Union Cross into that Project Xehanort as possible, and I'm positive linking the stories together for be like, oh well, you have to if you want to find out what happens to your character and all the rest of these characters that you've come to grow attached to over the last 4 or 5 years, make sure you go and play Project Xehanort, and if you spent a bit of money in this game, you'll get rewards in Project Xehanort too. So don't worry, all your progress hasn't been lost per se. You still get a brief acknowledgement. Maybe your name gets written on a wall somewhere or in one of the earlier notices. It doesn't mean completely all for nothing. It was worth spending money, so come and spend money in this one too. I'm positive they're going to have incentivizing reasons for you to go from Union Cross into Project Xehanort and really keep you on the hook as they make the transition into the new game. As to why they want to make a transition, obviously we'll talk about that in a little bit, but the player numbers of Union Cross are at the point now where I don't think it's not necessarily it is sustainable to keep it going, I'd imagine, but it's not crazy profitable the way they want it to be. We'll talk about that in a bit. The game has sort of reached that point where we're now talking about a method of getting these characters from the past into the future, which is the big lingering mystery, right? How do Ven, Luxine, Marluxia, and presumably Demyx and Luxord that we see existing in the past, how do they make their way into the future? And it seems like they're about to answer that. Unfortunately, it's going to take at least another 8 months for them to answer that fully, but at least we get to keep playing the game a bit longer. But it does seem to the story to be reaching its ending point. In addition to that, we finally got to play the Keyblade War scenario that we've been wanting since. It's never been available. It was only ever playable in Japanese, and it contains for the Key browser version, and it contains huge story implications. So they've finally given that to us, letting everyone finally catch up on the story. It's in a good place right now, but the problem is it may be too little too late. I have a huge team of volunteers that have been collecting data for me, which I cannot thank enough. I'm going to put their names on the screen right here, but essentially this is the amount of people that play the game actively, aka you do just 1 quest a week and you get counted into my list right here. I won't bore you guys with the amount of details here, but basically I've collected a significant amount of data on the game, but it basically boils down to this. This is the amount of people that play every single week. In the last few months, it's been about 50,000 people playing it regularly. In terms of gacha game numbers, especially when we compare it to bigger games, even Final Fantasy games like Dissidia, or there are larger ones, I know Nintendo's Regalia Lost has done quite well. The Bandai Namco Bandai Namco's Dragon Ball Dokkan Battle obviously does ridiculously huge numbers, which is a series from a lot of people's childhood being brought back in a mobile game version, and it's just doing absolute gangbusters. I can only assume the developers want the same thing for Kingdom Hearts, right? A series from a lot of our childhoods, now released on a mobile device in a gacha form. I'm sure they want it to do exploding, just huge as well. Unfortunately, that's not really been the case. The last few months, like I said, it's been about 50,000 people playing it. Hopefully you guys can see that there on the little graph. That green line literally right above my pen right there is the amount of total people playing it. The 5 colored lines below it are the breakdown of the individual unions. So that pink line is Volpers. Volpers always gets way more people playing than the rest of the unions, which is why they do best in the union rankings. It's not because they farm more Lux. Well, it is. It is and it isn't. On average, they actually farm less Lux than every other union, but it doesn't matter. In its absolute peak, hopefully you guys can see that absolute peak all the way over there. 3 guesses if you want to guess what that one is. The week the Kingdom Hearts 3 came out, the game had over about 225,000 people playing it. They logged in and did at least 1 quest. Unfortunately, they didn't stick around, because at the time there weren't really the features that we have nowadays to keep new players in. the tutorial mode to try and teach people how to play wasn't really as robust as it is now. Well, tutorial mode, I think it existed, but it wasn't as good as it is now, if it is, and it just didn't keep people around, clearly, because within a few months we were back down to the 100,000 people that we had before. That rose up a little bit on anniversary, because April is the global anniversary of the game. That always gets a big boost in numbers, but because they give out a bunch of free stuff. But literally ever since that anniversary, it's been in a pretty steady free fall, except for the Japanese anniversary, right there in September. And then again, just a slow dwindle down to about 50,000 people a week playing now. So, this is the situation, right? The game has improved drastically over time, but there's no one playing it anymore. It's literally too little too late. I think the name Unchained Key, and honestly Union Cross, is kind of tainted now. It was either a bad game back in the day, or it's too hard to get into nowadays, and there's no sort of middle ground. The official Twitter and Facebook page just refuse to acknowledge it, which is just bizarre to me. I really wonder why they don't just be like, hey, it's anniversary in Union Cross right now, you should check it out. Just a simple tweet like that. It's almost like they just don't want to acknowledge this game, which I do kind of think makes a bit of sense. Like, maybe the official... like, Square is a business, right? It has to make a lot of money. Kingdom Hearts 3 must have cost just ridiculous amounts to make. Like, I can't imagine the amount of beautiful animations in that game, the luscious, beautiful sceneries, and it's just... It must have cost a fortune to make. Let's not forget the fact that it switched engines. It's been in development for a long time. Like, it was announced, in 2013 as well? Announced forever ago. Finally out in 2019, and I think the gacha games are like Square's way of saying, okay, you can have Kingdom Hearts 3, you can be, not a blank check, obviously, but you can spend a lot on it, but you have to make a gacha game as well, and you have to make us our money back for literally no development cost. So, I mean, Union Cross is that, right? For a lot of time, the animations were directly taken from Kingdom Hearts Key, and of course, compare any animation in Kingdom Hearts, the mobile game, versus Kingdom Hearts 3, and there's obviously no contest. I mean, not that it's apples to oranges, but the development cost of Key and Unchained Key and Union Cross is so much lower. I mean, it has to be so much lower than the main games, and it's a regular recurring source of income, right? I know a lot of people that will spend 150 Australian dollars a month to get the VIP bonuses, basically, or the super VIP bonuses, which only last a month, and that's a regular recurring purchase. There's the $23 purchase of VIP, which is weekly, and I know a lot of people do that. But compare those to the one-off, $60 purchase of Kingdom Hearts 3, the $30 purchase of the Remind DLC. That's a one-off transaction, right? Or two one-off transactions that happen once a year. Compare that to the crazy amount that's spent. Obviously, it's spent by less people, but it's way more money spent regularly by this mobile game. So I think that's the trade-off. It's like, make us stories that can be delivered in a mobile game fashion regularly over a month, and we'll keep people on the hook with the story content and the fun events and whatever else. But in the meantime, we'll be constantly dripping out this new content, or these new medals and whatever, that encourage people to spend. Anyway, that brings us to Project Xehanort. I think I've skipped a lot. I can go over this in detail if you guys want to see it, because I've got data on PvP, PvE, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter. It brings us to Xehanort, I think. I think they're going to go ahead and relaunch the game, brand new game, as Project Xehanort. Get people's interest back into it, because obviously, again, the Union Cross name is sort of tainted at this point. Start afresh, take all the lessons they've learnt, give us Project Xehanort, and go from there. I mean, they can write the story however they want to, right? But it would make sense if, the teaser image that we've seen so far has shown 6 characters, I believe. Ericus and Xehanort are pretty obvious there. There looks like there's 4 in the background there, 4 standing up. So we've got this sort of 6 apprentice thing going on again that we had with Kingdom Hearts Key. I can only imagine some characters that we've seen before are going to pop up as part of these, blurred out people. I'm keen. I'm going to keep playing it. I'll make content guides for it, but hopefully they take the lessons that they've learned from this entire Unchained Key, Union Cross Key adventure and make a really fun game that doesn't scare people away. I imagine, in terms of the gameplay wise, it's probably going to be something similar, right? Like, I can't imagine it'll be a full... Well, I'd love it if it was a 3D game, but if it's going to be another 2D sprite game, then so be it. I think that, like I've said before, August is going to be probably the last Kingdom Hearts Union Cross story update. And in the game itself, I don't see it lasting the rest of the year. If the game does... If they ever want to catch us up for Kingdom Hearts global content story, that means maybe we'll get the final update in August as well. If not, then if it's the same 4-month wait, we'll get it in December of 2020, and I think that will be it. I think the game will be done pretty soon after that. So if you guys want to keep spending money on the game this year, as with every other gacha game, just be aware that, of course, that once the servers go off, that's it. That's it. You can't log in anymore. There's no way of ever seeing your character again, unless that character, of course, shows up. Hey, who knows? It could be one of the 4 people blurred out right there. It could be the master of these guys. You know, we don't know. But the game will go off at one point. There's no way of saving your save file. It's going to keep going away. Again, with all gacha games, with this brand new gacha game, just obviously keep that in mind. Anyway, I've rambled long enough. Yeah, let me know what you think. Do you think the game's got longer legs than 2021? I really don't think so. I think 2020 will be it. The game will overlap at some point. So like I said, we're going to have that 2-month break between May and June. I think that's when they're going to really ramp up into, like, start playing this game. Like, there'll be story updates for this, I'm sure, and they're going to really try and transition people in of, like, play this game, play Project Xehanort, play Project Xehanort. Like, it's a good game, it's a fun game. I just hope they don't screw it up the way they did before. Anyway, guys, I'll leave it with you. Yeah, tons more story to talk about with Union Cross. Obviously, with their Kingdom Hearts Remind reveals, I think they've more or less revealed who the imposter is, and it's someone that well, the writing was on the wall, let's just say that. So, if you guys aren't able to play Remind, I'm uploading basically the entire, like, the movie of it, which is all the opening cutscenes, a condensed version of the gameplay, so, like, just me just running around the new areas, doing all the boss fights and everything. Effectively going to have that up on YouTube. 2 parts already there, 1 part to go. And then I'm working on story content for Union Cross, lots to talk about. So, anyway guys, I'll see you really soon. All the best. Thanks very much. See you later. Bye.